For some of you, that happened when parents divorced. All of a sudden, your world was ripped apart. Because everything you knew, you looked at those two people that said they loved you and loved each other. Your whole world was built around them. I'm not saying you should have done something different. If that has happened to you, that's a horrible thing. Some of you now still hold on to that. And won't allow Christ to take the place of those things, because what you built after that happened, whenever you rebuilt, it was around you being in control. It wasn't anymore about your parents anymore because they let you down. It's about you being in control. So you built it around something else or someone else. I'm warning you, there's going to come a time, another time in your life, those things are going to come crashing down. Jesus tells it like this: there were two men who built houses. One built it on a rock, the other on the sand. A storm came. The man's house that was built on the rock stood firm, while the one in the sand was destroyed. But you see, the interesting thing about that story, that parable that Jesus teaches, both men had to go through a storm. Both men faced the same storm. One stood and one did not. If you're building your hopes, you're building your faith on something that's not going to last, something that is of this world, that is going to die, there's going to be a storm, folks. And when it passes, you'll have nothing. I've been there. We are to set our minds on the things above. Things that are not of this earth. Things that don't pass away. Things that don't leave or betray. We place our mind, we place our hope, our faith on a God who loves and has loved no matter what. That will continue to do so no matter what. That will never leave, never forsake. That is what we put our faith in, folks. That is the rock that no storm can shake. And we need nothing else. There's nothing else that we need other than that rock. Set your mind on things above. That doesn't mean you don't try if you're in a sports team. It doesn't mean you don't try. That means you don't play. It doesn't mean you stop doing the things that you're doing for your grades or start pursuing. That doesn't mean you stop being nice to people. It doesn't mean you stop loving. It means that's not where we begin to build our lives. We don't set that as our foundation. We don't set that. We don't set our control as our foundation. Let it be Christ, the only one who is unmovable, unshakable, unchanging. And that is who we place our hope. need nothing else. Any questions or comments?
I was thinking, I was reading earlier today in 2 Corinthians. And it's 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 12, and it says, we behave in the world, so we live out our lives in this world with simplicity and godly sincerity, not by earthly wisdom, but by the grace of God. And it reminded me as you were talking today about, building our foundation on things here. But even sometimes, we get so caught up in what our culture promotes as good things, like all that control stuff that you're talking about, because that's something I deal with a lot. Being financially set and being, making sure you have a good GPA and a college degree and, whatever else, success in your career. And all those things can be good things. Even in Christ, those things can be good things. But I think some of that also can fall into the category of, earthly wisdom, what this culture and this world promotes as a standard for success, as opposed to what God promotes. And I think, you guys, it's easy to fall into that. And I know sometimes it's even hard for me. I have a college degree. I'm an educated person. I was planning to go to law school. But the Lord, I know when He gave me Eden, had a different call in my life. And I think in the world's eyes, a lot of that could look as, throwing things away or throwing, education away or throwing opportunity away. But it doesn't matter, because I'm not living my life to the standard of an earthly wisdom or what our culture says, but to what matters and what God says and what God's call is on your life. And sometimes that's not going to make sense to you. It may not make sense to your parents. It may not make sense to your teachers. It may not make sense to anybody around you. But, it's exactly what John was talking about, setting our mind on what really matters and focusing and living your life in that direction.
Anybody else? Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else got anything?
And I was just thinking that, it kind of boils down to the difference between saying, just a minute, God, I don't have time for you because I got to make your grades. Or the other side of that could be, God, please make me the best student that you want me to be. That's what it boils down to. Is who's in charge of the deal. Because being a student is being a student, being a ball player or a member of the band or whatever it might be. Those things are given to God, they're so much richer when it comes out of Him. Than when it comes out of myself.
That could be with anything. Sports, if you're a football player, man, we know and we've seen it, even in pro sports, how God can use a football player who's sold out to playing his best for Him.
One thing about sport, if you're a competitive person, you want to win so bad that, you need to do something you're not supposed to do. And that's one of the hard things.
Okay. Listen, we're here. Okay. If you need to talk, if you're sitting there wondering, hey, what does all this stuff mean? I hear him saying a lot of things that I want to be interested, but I just don't know. Then please talk to somebody. Okay. Pull me aside. Pull Becca, Amy, Brandy, John, Mike. Pull one of us aside, and we'd love to talk to you. Okay. If you've got questions, if you've been reading your Bible, you've got questions about what you've been reading. Hopefully, you've been reading. Be in your Word. Okay. I know if you're going to be in your Word, there's going to be times when you're going to be like, what is this talking about? And that's okay. Okay? It's okay.